Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Raw Report. We've changed our scenery for this episode, which is why the audio might be a little bit funky. We're in the salubrious settings of the Seymour Racing Club CEO's office for reasons you'll soon find out. We have got the great man, Chris Martin, joining us, and he's got quite the resume, which we're going to go through here. He's a VFL draftee, an AFL draftee, a 1991 Senior Premiership player, Seymour Racing Club CEO, which he generously donates an office to me without a window, air conditioning or sunlight, largest racehorse shareholder in the Mitchell Shire, cathedral golf champion, holder of the highest belt and short combo on race days, and the worst punter in Australia. Chris Martin, welcome to the Raw Report.
What an intro, Darts. Yeah, that's there's a few little stories embellished there, I think.
Well, you are a man of many firsts today on the Raw Report. You're the first person we've had on that wears a suit from time to time in their day job. Pete Elliott's part-time, so we won't count him. And the very first draftee we've ever had, which is not surprising given we're 5 episodes in. Seymour born and bred. Take us through your early years and perhaps your football leading up to the age of 18.
Well, I've got to delve back, don't I, into the dim dark ages, but I was a junior footballer at the Seymour Junior Football Club through the years of whatever that would be, from sort of 9 to 17. So I grew up around the Kings Park area. I only lived about 400 metres from Kings Park. So that's where my career started. Played a lot of footy there with the famous Robert Doria, and we were very successful back then as a junior footy club. We used to defeat St Mary's quite a lot.
Was Robert Doria successful?
Not really, no, but he's sort of one of the guys I can remember playing juniors with.
Any other junior memories or just Rob Doria? That's quite a scary one if you got something more pleasant than that.
Yeah, that is scary. Just that it was a good formative place to learn football. Like I said, back in the day, there was a lot of great games between the St Mary's guys, and a lot more of those have ended up lifelong friends for me than the Seymour guys. But yeah, it was a great grounding. We've got lots of those senior junior footy trophies hiding at the club. So if anyone wants to have a look at my name on there, I'd be happy to show them.
You were very quick to find it last year when the Seymour Juniors made a grand final, so you definitely know where it is. Now, more of a brag here. You're drafted by Hawthorn in 1988 at pick 28 in the draft. Thinking about that draft, Leon Cameron, pick number 7, coach at AFL level. You've been an assistant at Seymour for a while, so tomato. Other draftees in that year, Chris Naish, Anthony Stevens, Michael Long, and Chris Grant at pick 105. So we've got the 2-part question here. What did the draft look like back then in terms of the pathway and recruitment? And do you still think, given Chris Grant played 341 games, that you deserve to be picked 77 spots higher than him?
I'll answer the second one first. Well, definitely not. But yeah, back in the day, I didn't realise I was drafted till the next morning. Looking in the paper, didn't even get a phone call from the Hawks. It was very different. There was no money exchanged hands. I think that was maybe a second round pick. So these days, I think you end up with a whole lot of cash. But it was a pleasant surprise. I'd sort of come from the clouds a little bit with my footy career. I was in and out of the seniors at Assumption, so first and seconds. I was not a lay down was there to play there at all. Then just from the age of 18 or 19, I blossomed somehow and caught the eye of the Hawks, and the rest is history.
And 1989, you're at the Hawks, so that's quite a famous season, the greatest grand final of all time in many people's books. What was it like being around Hawthorn there? There was definitely some egos, I imagine. I'm wondering if you went out on the town a few times with Dermy Pretty competitive environment at the Hawks, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was actually quite daunting, to be honest, coming from my background and then ending up at Hawthorn and those sorts of players that well, some of the audience will obviously remember and some won't, but they were the best team going around and there was superstars everywhere. Dipio Domenico, Chris Mew, Platten, Langford, Dermy, like the list went on. And it was yeah, a scary environment, to be honest, and the coaching back then was a lot different, and so if you weren't towing the line or you weren't sort of getting to the levels that they thought you were going to be, yeah, it was a pretty interesting time.
Anyone you're still in touch with from those days?
Yeah, probably the next year when I went to Richmond, I'll keep in contact with those guys. Alex McDonald, who played a lot of games and was drafted the same year as I was as number one. We sort of stay in contact a little bit. But yeah, every now and again, I'll come across some of the more famous Hawks guys, and they're always willing to have a yarn and have a chat about the days that I was there. But yeah, I've remained a bit closer to some of the Richmond guys because of the Justin Pickering connection and his connection with Seymour.
And we'll get to Richmond in a second, but you ended up at two clubs with no games, but you do attend a lot of past player events. How do you go there? Do they know who you are?
No, not at all. No. Well, Hawthorn haven't invited me back, but yeah, credit to Richmond. Their past players is fantastic, and yeah, I'm happy to go there a couple of times a year and watch a game of footy. And I'm involved in their golf day, so I think it's a credit to them that they do actually issue the invite. There's a lot of players in my shoes that only play reserves games, and they can tap into that crew, all of the clubs. So yeah, kudos to Richmond for doing that.
And that's a good segue into 1990, where you are at Richmond, pick 21 in the preseason draft. In terms of those clubs, they're probably at pretty different positions at that point in time, but have both turned into powerhouses since, or remained so in Hawthorn's case. What was the difference in the environment there between Hawthorn and Richmond? Could you sense walking in the door you were in a different place in terms of where the clubs are at?
Potentially, I think it was more the psychological of, going from one team that were on top of the ladder of one team that would back near the bottom. The there was a there was a distinct difference in the level of professionalism. Not it wasn't huge, but you could tell, and I think it was just more so the caliber of the player at the time. And there's ebbs and flows in teams' lists, but there was a lot more guys there that I could relate to, and maybe that was just because of the psychological part where you used to. Run into Brereton or Dipper and those guys and go into your shell a bit, or the Richmond guys weren't as well known.
And your career was cut short pretty much by Richo, who you were very close to emulating in the Richmond jumper. So that was unfortunate. But in 1991, it does get interesting. You come back to the Den. Any thought of going elsewhere, looking at Metro footy, having a crack at the top level again, or were you pretty adamant you've had your chance and tried as hard as you could and you were coming straight back to where it all began?
Yeah, well, just in '91, I was doing an intern year at Peter Mac as a radiation therapist, so I was pretty well locked in. There was a few approaches from some interstate clubs, but I'd kept in close contact with all of my friends from Seymour through '89 and '90. And I even played a couple of games in 1990 when I didn't get a game at Richmond. So those ties were pretty close. I'd played quite a number of senior games before I got drafted. So, I was mates with everyone there. And yeah, the team we were sort of thinking about getting back together in '91, there was no question that I wanted to be part of that.
And pretty special to come straight back in, win the flag in 1991. We've had some good discussion on that year already on the Raw Report. We've spoken to Peter Elliott about the local talent involved in that. Is that premiership still pretty fresh in your memory now, 25 years ago,
It's longer than that, isn't it?
35 years ago?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. No, that's all still pretty vivid. That just was a freaky year where the planets aligned. guys come back to the club. And we got a coach that's Robin White had come straight out of AFL at that point in time. So you can imagine how huge that is to get a coach of that caliber. And then lots of guys, as I said, come back to the club, and yeah, it was a fabulous year. We played some really good footy, and yeah, we got the ultimate success in the end.
And definitely some aura around that 91 side. You're a big man yourself, but you would have felt pretty safe with some of the blokes you had running around there. Yeah, John O'Souls and Glenn Coles in particular. John O's blowing up the phone looking for a berth on the Raw report, so we'll have to eventually relent and get who I thought was going to be the white whale on here quite soon. But how was that running out with those blokes who were hard as nails and bled Seymour through and through?
Yeah, well, I think it was no fluke that they were like that. Like we'd learned from as a kid watching through the 80s, some, terribly tough players that played for Seymour, Murray Osborne and Nugget Greenshields and the Barneses. So we sort of grew up watching these guys. And I think, whilst Jono and Glenn and Darren Coney and those guys, yeah, they were beasts to run out with. I think it was, because of I suppose, the foundations that have been laid during those formative years of watching those guys, and even thinking about Ian Baker and Paul Spagnuolo and Malcolm Williams, sort of in the mid to late 80s, they were complete lunatics. So, yeah, you could play a game of footy and walk around really tall with those sorts of guys around.
When men were men. And I've got your quote here on Jono, who played some AFL footy, and many people would say he's one of, if not the best line they've ever seen. And when I asked you about Jono, you said, quote, he was dog shit and he played a lot of reserves footy. So what do you have to say about Jono, who went from a bit of a battler to an AFL footballer?
Well, there's lots of similarities. I was pretty similar. Like, yeah, we were a long way back, and I can't speak on behalf of Jono, but I know he worked terribly hard. And he just had this, I don't know, this fierce competitive desire to get better and yeah, become a good footballer. The psychological warfare bit for him was, that was high, and he had a high footy IQ as well. That he could follow up the bluff with, a fair bit of action too.
Yeah, not super psychologically strong when it comes to getting through a 2-hour committee meeting, but I'm sure he was nice and tough out on the field. Now, to you as a player, as we've said, you're a pretty big man, mainly played at centre half back. How would you describe yourself as a player, and how would some of your teammates describe you, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think I was a battler. I got the most out of myself that I think I could. I worked really hard. It's well known that I couldn't jump, and I wasn't a very good overhead mark. But I had a passion for the game. I got really fit, and I think, yeah, the I just touched on it, that psychological part of the game. Like we were ruthless. Um, Mark Bender was part of that. Ben Davey. Yeah, we used to say some awful things to opposition players, and you wouldn't get away with it these days. But always after a game, have a beer. The first ones to have a beer with them. So yeah, I just worked hard, mate, and I'm not sure what other people would say. Maybe a good clubman. Yeah, but my fitness really was the key for me. I can keep going in the back end of quarters and things like that.
And still looking like a bronze Adonis to this day. So you've done well to stay in shape, and Melissa's a very lucky lady. Uh, Big power forwards in that era in the GV. There's a famous image that does the rounds of one of those forwards who's built like a brick proverbial, and he's got his fingers round your throat and he's pulled your windpipe straight out of your head. What was it like playing on some of those big boys back in the day who'd kick 100 a season and tear the competition up?
Yeah, well, I always had that was Chris Stooldryer, I think you're referring to, and that's a famous photo I've got in my collection. Um, Yeah, I'm not sure the people that are listening won't be able to see it, but the Stuart Lock is actually running that day, or is a trainer for the day, and he's just standing next to me. And I was in all sorts of trouble. He was a policeman. He was a big man, and I don't know whether it was a special police grip, but he did. I reckon his fingers got me around my windpipe. Um, but yeah, I had to play up the field from him a little bit, along with a lot of really good full forwards. So me being at centre half back, you quite often were backing back into perilous situations. You didn't know who was coming. And he was a beast. He kicked lots and lots of goals. I think he might have kicked 100 for 6, 8, 10 years in a row. Yeah, it's a bit sad-sardish.
Jeepers, that sounds like fun as a defender. And then it all must have got a little bit too hard because in 1994 and 95, you go up to get some more sun in Morningside. You win a flag, uh, and more importantly, yes, you continue your record of helping people get drafted. Danny Dickfoss, is that the right name? He towers you up in a grand final, you lose. You come back to the den and things are a little different to when you were last there. But what was it like helping players getting drafted over your footballing journey and having a little time away?
Yeah, well, I took a redundancy in 90, I think it was 93, Jeff Kennan's era, and I wasn't allowed to work in my profession, so I had to go to somewhere where I could get a job. Went to Brisbane for a couple of years, which was fantastic, and played for Morningside, won a flag. And in 95, we were playing Danny Dickfoss's team, and they'd been trying to get him to play at Brisbane for a number of years. He was a fabulous player. I can't remember the exact stats, but it was terrible. We lost by about 3 or 4 points, and he had about 40. I was centre half back, he was centre half forward. He had about 40 possessions and kicked 6 goals. So he was clearly the difference. So it wasn't a good way to finish up at Morningside. But yeah, at the end of that year, 95, I come back to Seymour and played from 96 onwards.
And after a little successful period at Seymour, it was fairly lean for a while. Do you have any regrets from your playing career and having known how good Seymour was for a little bit in that early 90s period? Do you think maybe there should have been some more success than there was at Seymour?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that 92 and 93's teams, in my opinion, were better than 91. But we started to enjoy ourselves a little bit too much. We got some great recruits in during that time. Paul Cox springs to mind, Justin Pickering springs to mind. Like these were absolute guns, and we retained most of our players. So we probably left a bit in the bag there. I'm just commenting on 96 when I come back. So 96, 7, 8, 9 weren't very good years for Seymour, but they were fun times. Like we had a ball playing. I loved playing there. I think 96 we might have been wooden spoons. And me coming off, 2 premiership, playing in 2 grand finals, you might think it was disappointing, but it wasn't. We had a lot of fun during those times. People like Shoddy were blooded during that period of time who, you know, I think the resilience and so forth that a lot of those younger blokes would have learnt from, getting beaten up a fair bit, held them in good stead for that next sort of period of time where we won all those flags.
Yeah, and Shoddy last year at our Premiership reunion mentioned those hard years and how it made that success all that much more sweeter when it did come. So that's good to hear. Then you bugger off again up to the border for a little bit and you do some coaching up there. We'll have a little discussion on that, but then you return here and end up coaching the thirds. Have you got any stories from that year? I don't think they were too crush hot.
Yeah, look, it was talking about resilience. That actually, as a sort of into my adult years, that taught me a lot about resilience. But look, it's no secret that our thirds ebb and flow in terms of the good years and the bad years. We're a smaller town, and sometimes, yeah, we just don't have the numbers to pick from. And that year that I coached, I think Brocky coached the year before, and then I coached. Yeah, very, very interesting times. A funny story there. We only kicked we wouldn't have kicked many goals for that whole year. And somehow the balls ended up in our forward line in the hands of someone in the goal square who was about to run into an open goal and kick what might have been our 14th or 15th goal for the year. Unfortunately, he was tackled by one of our players. So that was the sort of paints a picture of that year. But again, you know, young men having a crack playing footy. Yeah, it was good. I'm not sure. I think might Will Bourne was part of that. Big Brocky. Who else? Benny Tarrant maybe. So some of the people that have gone on to play senior footy for us. So that's fantastic. If we got a few senior players out of that year.
And Will probably didn't stand much chance with the bloodline through Butch, I imagine. No comment.
Well, he did get knocked out by he got a footy in the head once at the Rupert. Poor old Will and in the thirds, and I mean that's another story. But he ended up in hospital with concussion. So
Well, sounds good. And coaching the third, it's a thankless job, but it sounds like it brings some enjoyment. And as long as the functions are good, it's happy days at the Den. Recently, though, you've also been involved coaching at the senior level and where you're a calming presence in the coaching box and you ensure everyone's blood pressure's kept down. But also you've got Ruby in the netball, Harry in the football. So plenty of family involvement still. The club must hold a special place in your heart.
yeah, well, it's footy netball clubs are fantastic places for young adults, male and female alike. So and senior footy netball clubs no different. So to see young people striving to be better, uh, mix with their peer groups, it teaches them all sorts of life lessons being part of a footy netball club. And yeah, it's just good to have Rubes and Harry having a run round and having a crack.
And day to day, it's worth touching on what you do out here. So you're the CEO of the Seymour Racing Club, and you never miss the opportunity to plug the great work of the Seymour Racing Club and a fantastic sponsor of ours at the Seymour Football Netball Club. Talk to us a little bit about your role and anything exciting you might have on the horizon happening out here.
Yeah, well, we run the day-to-day operations of the race club. So there's a few elements to that. There's, as I just said, there's the operations, so getting all of the race meetings organised, pre-event, post-event. Uh, we're governed by a board, so everything that I need to do sort of passes through those guys. There's a whole lot of strategy around what is it we want to be doing into the future. So there's some exciting plans here in terms of developing the training side of the race club. So having a lot more horses on site, and then trying to grow out some race meetings. So Seymour Cup's the obvious one, but we've got plans to grow out the Puckapunyal Cup, which is coming up on the 26th of April. And we've got our Christmas party, Roast Day, Kids Day out. So we're always thinking of ways that we can get more people involved in the race club. So that sort of fills in my time.
And a co-CEO alongside the premium ChatGPT subscription, which helps with productivity out here. So a modern and progressive CEO here out on Cobbyboyne Road. Now, getting back to the football, before we get into your favourite line questions, what do you think success looks like for Seymour this year? Is there anything you're excited about? Football, netball? What's your vibe?
Yeah, I think from a football point of view, when you win a reserves flag, I think that augurs well for the next year, especially in the demographic of that group. It was quite young, so that's exciting to see some of those guys climb up the ladder. But I think also having the VFL guys back, which everyone's excited about. We've got a couple of long-term injury guys back and a couple of recruits. That things are looking very good. I haven't been to training as much at the start of the year, but I do know that they are fit, and I'm sort of thinking that they'll finish third to fifth is my prediction. And then with the netball, the same again, like the success that the senior group in particular have had over, wow, a long period of time. I think it's the envy of a lot of the netball clubs in the GB. So, and they show no signs of stopping. So they're very successful. and hoping to see, obviously we talked on, but hoping to see Ruby play a bit more this year and also watch Harry too. So
And for many people, you're probably Ruby Martin's dad around the club rather than her being your daughter. And I know, having bumped into you a few times at the railway when I was a little bit younger, closer to 18, I certainly didn't think you were an AFL draftee or anything like that. I thought maybe you'd just been let out for the night. But you've downplayed yourself magnificently throughout this little interview. So we're going to get into your quick fire questions. Righto. So the first one, your favourite line personality, SFNC person around the club.
can I have a few?
Certainly, everyone's hedged their bet so far, so I guess you may as well.
Yeah, I think I've listened to a couple of the Raw reports, of course, and there's the obvious. You got your obvious ones, but I think couple of our long time supporters. So Brocky's always there, Matteo Sol, Martin Bender, Rocket Keris, Shine Up, Cornsway. Like there's this group of people that attend our games, come hell or high water, and not only our home games, but our away games as well. So, yeah, a bit of a shout out to those loyal supporters, I suppose.
And hopefully they didn't see you have a flare up at Kyabram a couple of years ago. Uh, Best player you've played with. So you might be looking further afield here potentially.
Yeah, no, I think even though I played a couple of clubs elsewhere, I never got to play with Dermy or Dipper. They'd be obvious, but because I didn't play a senior game, I can't include those guys. But it's got to be John. I think I know he's going to come up a lot, but for a few reasons, where he come from, he worked hard, he got drafted, he was loyal to the footy club, um, and he was tough, and he was like, yeah, he was a psycho, and it was great to run out with him. He made everyone play probably better than their ability was. But he was also a really good mentor for younger people too. So yeah, I'll say Jono.
Best player you've played against, and I've got a little note here, some bloke Miller, you two getting stuck into it one day.
Yeah, Robbie Miller he was Rochi guy. He was brilliant. Yeah, the story goes, it was at Seymour in front of the Eastern Hill rooms, and we just stood toe to toe and landed punches on each other. And the umpire was right there. Both reported, both sent off. The beauty that we had on our side was the GV game was the next week, and he was intrinsic in that. So he went to the tribunal. The umpire got it perfectly correct. Like there was no way we were going to get off this. But for some reason, yeah, because of the technicality, both of us were got off the striking charges, and he went on to play for the GV. He was a cracking player.
And it might have been he went to the tribunal and they couldn't find a scratch on him after you'd whacked him with it. Anyway, best line you've ever seen. So could be from your youth or you could double up here. Best line you've seen.
Yeah, I missed out on those halcyon years where they won the three flags and missed the fourth one. But I did go and watch quite a number of games. And yeah, I think for the impact, I've never seen young kids at a country game of footy or so many with the number 5 on their jumper. So yeah, some of the stuff Saar did was amazing. So I think it would have to be Saar.
And what about now? There's another good bloke running around in number 5 who's close to as gifted as Sard in Riley Mason. Who's your favourite lines running around at the moment?
Well, Riley Mason, you can tell someone's good when they make it look so easy, and he can play on some really good defenders and towel them up, and you think, wow, and he's quite laconic. So look, Riley's up there. I think for sheer resilience, I think Huey Jones would be sort of up there as well. He's still there having a crack. He's had a lot of injuries that might have sort of put a lesser man down. So I'd put Huey up there as well at the moment.
Hasn't missed a function though. Well done, Huey. Any other messages for the Lions faithful ahead of 2026?
Not really. I think we've got a very exciting year, both on the football and netball court. So yeah, get your memberships, and if you got a bit of cash and you're a business sponsor, and yeah, it'd be good to see you all down at the footy and
Beautiful.
netball.
And don't forget, if you're advanced in age, the Seymour Football Netball Club's accepting donations in wills as well. So we will take that if you're willing. Big thank you to Chris for joining us. It's been quite insightful and a pleasure to speak to someone who saw football at every level. So thank you very much, Chris.
And it's just to you, like for starting this Raw report, I think it's why we actually enjoy the footy club. It is always innovative and culturally with our, our off-field shows that we've got, we always seem to be innovating well. And I think this is fantastic. And I think a lot of other football clubs are starting to do this as well. So great work to you and Pete and whoever's organised this. This is fantastic. And it's chronicling our history forever. So well done.
Thank you, Chris. And for a large consultancy fee, happy to help out other clubs. So don't forget to subscribe to the Raw Report to make sure you get all these future episodes straight into your ears. Again, Chris, what a fantastic guest. Plenty of stories and trips down memory lane there. And Jono, we can hear you out there. We'll get on to you soon. Thanks, everyone, and go Lions.